This is Unit 16, Form and Music, from the Fundamentals of Piano Theory by Keith Snell and Martha Ashley, Level 4. In this unit, we look at the Sonatina first movement form, and we look at a Sonatina by Clementi, Opus 36, number 2, and it's the first movement. Because my camera can't really get the full 2 pages, I'm going to kind of move it around. I'm also going to put in the comment section a good YouTube video that you can listen to this piece while you're kind of looking at it, because obviously in music you want to listen to as much music as possible so you can hear what's going on in the music while you're analyzing it. Obviously, looking at the music too is another great way to kind of dissect parts of it as well, so you can see what you're hearing. So the 3 basic and most important sections of the first movement of a sonatina are the exposition, which is the first section of the first movement, the development, and then the recapitulation, which a lot of people just call the recap. So in exposition, that's when our first theme, or that's when the theme is first presented, and it's in the main key. We also have the second key, or I'm sorry, the second theme, which is introduced, and we have a closing theme, which isn't always in the exposition section. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. It just depends on the composer and if he decides to put it in or not. The development section is when a new theme is presented. And then the recapitulation section is when we go back to the exposition. We go back to these themes that were first introduced in the very beginning of this first movement. So we're going to look at the 3 different sections, the exposition, the development, and the recapitulation, or the recap section, and answer these 10 questions down below based on this first movement of the Clementi Sonatina, first movement. Okay, so I think these are all basic, pretty straightforward questions here, and they already kind of have the answers for you labeled on here. You just kind of have to find the measure numbers and label it in there for you. But before we look at those questions, just kind of looking at the music here. This was from a previous unit. Just ignore that. I was just looking at what a motive was in a previous unit. So at the top here, it has the sonatina. It has the composer labeled here. Underneath of it, it has the categorization of what the music was, the opus number. And then underneath of it, this Roman numeral 1, this is the first movement. So this is the first movement of this piece of music, of this sonatina. This exposition, this development underneath, and then this recapitulation. This is not written in pieces of music. This book is writing it in here to show you where these sections of the movement and these big kind of points of the movement are at, as well as this first theme and these different keys are at. This is not in music typically, unless you are have a special kind of edition. So this is kind of nice because everything is labeled for you as well. But see here, here's our exposition with the very first measure, and this shows you where our themes are, what keys they're in, our development, and then the recap where it comes back in at as well. Okay, so just know that that's not in music typically, unless you have a special edition or whatnot. The first question says, in what measure does the exposition section begin? Remember, the exposition is the right off the get-go. So in what measure does it begin? It begins in measure 1, the very beginning. So measure 1. You don't even have to look at the music to know that. Number 2, in what measure does the first theme begin? So the first theme begins when the exposition begins, which is also measure 1. Now you can kind of debate that for both these first 2 questions, because this has a pickup, so you could say the pickup into measure 1, but we're just going to say measure 1. going to write in parentheses here, maybe pick up to measure 1, if you want to get like real technical about it. Okay, number 3, in what key is the first theme? Okay, so our first theme, remember that's right at the beginning. I'm looking here, I have 1 sharp in my key signature. Okay, so that's either going to be G major or it's going to be E minor. I can see that they have the answer written right here, but remember music doesn't always have that written in. So I'm going to look at my chords that are written out here. They're all broken chords, and I can see that they're all are G major broken chords. So I'm going to say that this is in the key of G major. Number 4, what note in measure 7 indicates a change of key? So I'm going to find measure 7. And look, they have the answer written right here. It says C sharp indicates a change of key. Because remember, we're going to the dominant. And in the dominant, D major, you have an F sharp and a C sharp in the key signature. So this C sharp here is going to be our indicator that we're moving to the dominant, because C sharp is in the key signature of D major. And then the second theme, we move to the dominant key signature. This is our first time doing this in these theory books here, so this is kind of be overwhelming analyzing a piece of music like this. The more you do it, the easier it gets. With a larger piece of music like this, so just kind of absorb the information for now. The more you do it, the more you get used to it. It's kind of like learning a new language. All the vocabulary and the concepts of the grammar and everything, just kind of absorb it, and over time you'll understand why it is what it is. Number 5, in what measure does the second theme begin? So I'm going to find where my second theme is, right here. So we can see that we move to the dominant key. We have that indicator note right here. And the second theme begins with this pickup right here. So if you want to be technical, you could say the pickup into measure 9. I'm just going to write measure 9. Or I could just write pickup. In parentheses, it's up to you. I don't have the answer key book to this series, so I'm not sure what the answer key book says. It could say either one, but it's really the pickup into measure 9. In what key is the second theme? Well, we said the second theme is the dominant key from the first theme, so the dominant key is D major. Number 7, in what measure does the development section begin? Remember, the development section is the second major section of the first movement. And here we are in measure 20, 21, 22, 23, or you could say the pickup into measure 23. I'm just going to write 23. And then in parentheses, I'll put pickup. If you want to be technical about it, or I guess more accurate about it. What theme is used in the development? Okay. Let's see. So, are we using a brand new theme here, or are we using a theme that was already used in the exposition? So is it something brand spanking new, or is it something previously used? I can see here, this motive was used up here. Same kind of rhythmic and melodic movement. This is the first theme. It also says first theme, first theme. But if that wasn't written there, I could kind of use my eyes and say, that looks pretty similar. Number 9. And what measure does the recapitulation section begin? Remember, the recapitulation, or the recap, is where we're going back to that exposition section kind of again to kind of close it all off. The recapitulation section starts on measure 35, 36, 37, or the pickup to measure 37. So I'm going to write measure 37, or in parentheses, pickup number 10. And what key is the second theme in the recapitulation or in the recap? So I'm going to find, here's my recapitulation, there's the first theme, and here's the second theme. It says right here it's in the key of G major, but remember in music it doesn't say that there. They gave us the answer. So I'm going to look here. I have a sharp in my key signature. I have a lot of octave G's in my left hand. I don't have any accidentals. I have these G major scales happening here. I am in the key of G major. And that's that. Now it says in the bottom, suggestions for further study, name and label chords and inversions. So that would be like looking at this measure here, saying, oh, okay, well, this isn't stacked on top of each other. This isn't a blocked chord. It's a broken chord, but I can still look at these notes individually. This is a G, B, D. This is a G major chord, and in the key of G major, this is a 1 chord. So I can use my Roman numerals that I learned in this book, and I can analyze these chords. So you can use what you learn in this book for that as well. What else does it say to do in here? It says name and label major scales. Okay, so right here, this is a G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp because of the key signature and a G. So this is a G major scale. If I can write the letter A there. It says identify the use of repetition, sequence, and imitation. Okay, so right here at the top, if I'm just looking at this little blurb, boop, 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 I start on a B, D, C, B, and then I go down to an A, C, B, A. This is a sequence. We started on B, and now we're moving down by step. So that is a sequence moving down by step sequence, down by second. So I'm not going to obviously go through this entire piece, but I'm just kind of showing you what they're looking for there. Let's see if I can kind of find any repetition happening. Boop-a-doop-a-doop, boop-a-doop-a-doop, boop-a-doop-a-doop. Here we go. Here's some repetition happening at the very bottom here. Repetition, same exact thing happening. Repetition. What else are they looking for here? Let's see if I can find some imitation really fast. There we go. Here's some imitation. So it happened in the left hand, and now it's moving to the right hand. So that's imitation. What else do they want here? Mark the motives used in different sections. So here's our main motive happening here. So I'll write main, motive, or motif. Bum, 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 bum. Here it's happening again. I'll draw it with some clouds happening here. Here it's happening again. Some more fancy clouds. So you can see it's happening several times throughout this piece, or throughout this movement. Sometimes just dissecting it like that. That was really super fast. So I could say check, 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 check. I'm able to go through all of those different things there. And take your time with this. Maybe just say like, okay, today I'm going to look at the chords and inversions. Okay, tomorrow I'm going to find some major scales. The next day I'm just going to find some repetition or maybe some sequence or maybe some imitation. Anything like that. Don't overwhelm yourself and kind of dissect this entire piece all in one day. And obviously doing it all in one color pen or whatever, that can be kind of overwhelming. So maybe say, okay, I'm going to use a green crayon and do imitation. Or I'm going to use yellow highlighter and do major scales. Whatever works best for you. You know, everybody's learning style is different. I'm going to stop talking now. That's the end of this video. I think you guys get it.